All right. Okay. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be continuing on the story of the Persian War. So, in this one, I'm probably not going to do as much justice as it needs. We're going to be getting into the Battle of Thermopylae, or at least everything leading up to the Battle of Thermopylae, which is arguably one of the most epic tales ever told throughout all of history. So I'll do the best I can. Last time we talked about the Battle of Marathon and how epic that was. Again, I don't know if I did that great of a job. I don't think I did. I highly suggest picking up a book of Herodotus, and Greek author Herodotus, and just reading his story. It is just a fun story to read and just how it all works out. Anyways, so after that Battle of Marathon happens, though, in the last video the last lesson, I did talk about how Darius had to go around his empire, the Persian Empire, just put down tons of revolts for like the next 10 years. And he had the plan on coming back to Athens and just kind of absolutely crushing Athens, but he passes away before then. And so his son, Xerxes, then takes over. That's how you say his name, Xerxes. At least that's the way I've heard everybody say it. It starts with an X. I know it's Xerxes, but anyways. So he swears to follow through with his father's plans. You know, Persia is all put in place. It's how do I put it? No more rebellions going on, and now they have the opportunity to go back to Greece and just crush it. And this time, they're not taking any chances. God, there's a huge army. I have heard so many numbers on this. Just right off the bat, I need to tell you, from Herodotus, the guy that we get this story mainly from, he gives a number like, God, I can't remember if it's 1 million or 2 million, something like that. Just a massive amount of men. Just what today we believe that's an impossible number of men. It's agreed that most likely it was an army that was just unfathomable, probably equaled the entire population of mainland Greece itself. But it probably was more around like the 200, 300,000 mark. That's why I say 250,000 here. It's just like hitting a rough estimate. So it's just a rough estimate. It's big. You don't see armies this big in ancient times. Like, you never see armies this big in ancient times. This is massive. It was 100,000, it was massive. If it was 50,000, it'd be considered massive. So this is just a beyond comprehension big army. So that's pretty much agreed on, that this army it was a doomsday army. It was meant to kind of destroy the world type thing. And in creating it, we do know that Xerxes pulled men from all over the Persian Empire. So you had people that were all the way over towards India, mixing with people from Egypt, mixing with people from Mesopotamia, from Asia Minor. He pulls in everyone into this army. It's just not straight Persians. This is a multi-ethnic army. I doubt there was that many Persians to be in an army in the first place. Now, it says he views himself as a god incarnate. This is part of the fun story where you can kind of just delve into it. Whether he thought he did or not, well, we learned this from Herodotus. But he really talks him up in the idea of he's a bit egotistical, let's put it that way. For instance, the picture I have off to the right there is a famous story of how I should be putting this up. He has to cross a place called the Hellespont. Now, I've talked about the Hellespont before. This map isn't the best. It's a little bit too bright. That narrow neck of water. Unlike the last army that came over and fought at Marathon, Xerxes does not have enough ships to transport all these men. So he uses his fleet as just a supply line to bring food up to it whenever they need it. So it's just constantly going back and forth, bringing food to this army to keep it fed so it can keep on the march. So how do you get across the Hellespont if you just don't have enough ships to get enough ships, or you can't use those ships because they're needed for food to do so? Well, he just takes tons of little ships and builds a bunch of little ships, like fishing boats of the area, and ties them together and just gets basically a mile-long thing. It's about how long they needed it to get from one side to the other Hellespont. Now, it is said that a huge storm kicked up and threatened to destroy this bridge right as it was getting finished. And Xerxes orders his priests to go down and whip the ocean, the god of the ocean, into order. And supposedly, like, the ocean goes back to no storm within like 2 hours, and he declares victory over the ocean, that he, as a god himself, was able to subdue another god. Anyways, it's just fun stories like that. If you ever pick up Herodotus, Herodotus, I hope I spelled that right. These are fun stories to read. So, anyways, he crosses over. The Greeks know they're coming. And Xerxes wastes no time in basically just saying, I'm going to kill everyone. I'm being a little bit, how do I put it? I'm embellishing that a little bit. Essentially, he's like, join me or die. You will sign up, pay taxes, you'll be a direct tributary state to Persia, or I will destroy you. I will wipe out every last man, woman, and child in your city-state. And he understands the nature of Greece, where it's not just one unified area, it's a bunch of different and squabbling city-states, and he feels like that works towards his advantage. He can play them off of each other, offer one a lot of rewards in order to kind of jack another one. Now, the one city-state it does not offer anything to is Athens. He is going to destroy Athens. That's the goal. That's to fulfill his father's wishes type thing. So, now, I like to show this picture. It's just some random picture I pulled off of the internet. But in it says, at least the caption says, that you're seeing about 15,000 people in this army, which is definitely a massive group of people. So you kind of take that and you think of 250, maybe 300,000 people on the march, or 1 million, as Herodotus says it is. Yeah, that must have been tough to keep together. That must have taken a lot of good administration to keep that all together. So, anyways, back in Greece, Athens knows they're coming, and they have a guy that steps forward as definitely considered one of the greatest leaders now, just not of Greek history, but of all of history, a guy named Themistocles. And he's a guy that's just, even after Athens won the Battle of Marathon, they're a bit exultant, he's like, they're coming back, we need to prepare, we just can't just say, oh, we won this time, and just think that we're going to win the next time. They're going to come back with a vengeance on us. So he has a plan. The first part of this plan was, we need a navy. We definitely need a navy. If we can make sure that we can control them where we're not going to allow them to land where they want to land. We can kind of control them on land and sea as best as possible. Well, we need a navy. So he builds a huge fleet. Then he visits all the other city-states. I'll explain that map in a second. Then I'll be coming back to that map in a little bit. He visits all the other city-states and essentially just convinces them, they might be coming to destroy us, but think about this. All of us are going to lose our freedoms. All of us are going to lose our independence as city-states. We have a need to join together or die. By the way, if you've heard that phrase before, yes, that was actually inspirational to the whole join or die thing with the 13 colonies leading into the American Revolution. So, we can't work against each other. If we join together, we have a chance. So that was Themistocles that did that. So if you can kind of get the idea, this is a big guy even to Americans today, a very influential character in just the starting of our country. So he goes around and he's actually quite convincing with this. He actually convinces a lot of city-states. The city-state that basically says take a hike is Thebes. I think I've mentioned that quite a few times. Thebes and Athens do not get along. But a lot of cities basically say, you know what, we'll join if Sparta joins. And so, anyways, I'm going to bring up everything here just so I can explain what's going on. So he goes down and he is actually able to convince one of the kings, a guy named Leonidas. The other king was a little bit hesitant of the Spartan kings, but he also was able to convince the assembly, the assembly of veteran soldiers in Sparta, that this is probably the time to do so. And what helped that decision is actually when Xerxes' envoy gets to Sparta and basically says, hey, we've heard you guys are pretty good soldiers. We'll actually give you command of all mainland Greece. You just need to pay your taxes and call yourself a tributary state of us, and you'll be good. And that essentially offended the Spartans so much that they took that Persian envoy and threw him down a well. And if you've ever seen the movie 300, they exaggerate that part pretty well. So this is Sparta, kicks the guy down the well. Anyways, so again, pretty famous story we're going through. One of the more epic stories ever told, and I'm just kind of summarizing it, so I apologize again one more time. So Themistocles gets his coalition in place. He gets most of Greece on the side of Athens to where they're agreeing to fight with each other and stave off this massive Persian threat, that they're willing to basically die together in their independence and freedom. Again, as Americans, we love that whole sentiment. And this is a huge underdog story. If you're not catching on that, again, the main theme of this whole story is to be an underdog. So, Xerxes is coming across. He is subduing a lot of Greek city-states on his way, but once he gets down towards, once he gets to Thebes, basically, Thebes actually does submit to Xerxes and actually even agrees to fight on Xerxes' side. They're kind of viewed as the traitors at this point. Well, right when Xerxes gets down there, well, sorry, I shouldn't say this. Before he gets to Thebes, Thebes does submit to Xerxes later on. But the whole idea of what I'm trying to explain is a lot of city-states are submitting. But as he's coming, Themistocles has this plan of like, all right, I know what we need to do. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice on a lot of people's side, but I know what we need to do. And actually, Athens is the one that's going to sacrifice the most here. He basically says, everybody on the Attican Peninsula, which is this whole area right here, we're leaving. We're going to go over here and just hold up on the Peloponnesian Peninsula with all these people that haven't liked us for hundreds of years. Anyways, but the whole idea is that at least we'll be behind this narrow neck of land, which is called the Isthmus of Corinth. Now, notice how I say the battle strategy using Isthmus of Corinth. Here's the simple strategy. Themistocles wants to take the entire population of Attica, all these unified Greeks, and move them over where they have to basically get along with each other for the next, well, in this case, like 10 years. They're going to be with each other, because he knows Athens, the city of Athens, is not a defensible spot against the massive army coming down at them. But if they can go across that Isthmus of Corinth and build a wall across it, because it's narrow enough to where they can build a good 40-foot wall, and they can man it with their army that is somewhere around 40,000 men total, between all the Greek city-states, they got about 40,000 men total. They have a chance now against that innumerable host coming against them. The next part of that plan then is that they know that the Persian ships will try to get a bunch of the Persian soldiers across the sea over to the Peloponnesian Peninsula and then raid them that way. Hence why he had this idea, we need to build our own navy, because he wants to have a showdown. And this whole plan hinges on two showdowns. One showdown basically at the wall, and another showdown on the sea. So, and basically, if he can keep the Persians back in both areas and maybe even destroy the Persian fleet, they might win this. You know, that it is possible that they can win this. So that's his whole plan. That's Themistocles' plan. And he does get everybody together to do this. It's quite an amazing feat that he's able to do this. All these people that do not like each other, with this whole threat of massive destruction looming before them and loss of freedom, you know, they actually unite together for a common cause. That leads us into what's called the Battle of Thermopylae. So, and I'm realizing at this point I do not have enough time to talk about the Battle of Thermopylae, which means we're going to extend this whole series another part. So I'm just going to end it right here with this whole idea of just the establishment of this massive Persian army that Xerxes gets together, and he's coming to basically just crush Greece and subdue it. You know, or anybody that isn't subdued is crushed. And then this whole plan of Themistocles and uniting Greece together to combat against his foe, join or die type thing. And so in the next lesson, I'll focus specifically on Thermopylae, which is considered the most epic part of this epic story. And again, I'll probably not do a very good job of telling it. That's why I say again, look this up. It is fun. And yes, we have tons of like media, movies, books based upon this. So with that, I will see you guys in the next lesson.